Hey.
Hey, welcome everybody. Uh, this is webinar number five of five for our first series of webinars for here today. Today, you can see we're joined by so many beautiful faces. Besides our partners, Chris Elford and Mario Cortez, we're joined by some of our fellow neighbors in the Belltown neighborhood, fellow small business owners who are going to, we're just gonna have a nice little neighborly chat today. Couple updates. We're still hanging right around the $300,000 mark. We encourage anyone who's watching this, whether you've invested already or not, to spread the word, help us out. And we're kind of making a big post-election push because we know you guys have all been very focused on other things. So, yeah, keep an eye out for some cool things coming down the line from us. But today we're gonna have a great chat with Anna Douglas from Take Care Yoga, a new Apte of all the best bars in Seattle, Rob Roy, Navy Strength, No Anchor, and Vinnie's Wine Shop. And then Chris Jones, also of one of the best bars in Seattle, Screwdriver and Belltown Yacht Club. So let's have Chris Elford take it away.
Hey. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thanks for being here, y'all. Kind of the idea behind this one was more for, to paint, I think I said earlier, paint with some broader strokes compared to the webinars that we've done earlier, which were very like information dense. And, the long and short idea of those was so we can show our community of investors or potential investors that we know what the heck we're talking about. This is more about like who we are and what we care about and what we love. And to paint a better and broader picture of that, we thought it would be cool to bring in some people that are just really, really, really important to us and really important to our community, and have a little conversation about small business ownership and entrepreneurship. So I'm gonna go clockwise on my screen from the bottom left, which means I'm starting with Chris Jones from Screwdriver Bar and Belltown Yacht Club. Hey, Chris.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for being here.
Great to be here.
And then we have Anna from Take Care Yoga, who has the distinct pleasure / burden of being our new neighbor in our business. And you guys just opened, what, a few weeks ago, huh?
Yep, 10/16.
Crazy.
Yep, completely.
Yeah. But what a year to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get to know you guys real well. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm pumped too. And then a new Apte, my partner in No Anchor and Navy Strength and Vinnie's, and all around legendary person in the bar world. Hi, New.
Hi.
Hey, Neil.
Hey. Hi, everyone.
Thanks for being here.
This is exciting. Thanks for having me.
So let's jump into some questions, and we'll just kind of like keep it pretty organic, as our crew is kind of want to do in these things. But let's start by going around and talking about how you ended up in Belltown, specifically with your business. But I mean, more than that, just kind of like what your earliest sort of like interactions with Belltown were, and then sort of how you came to be there. Let's start with you, Anu.
Oh, okay. When I moved to Seattle in 2005, my first apartment was just right up the street from the building that you're going to be in. We're here today and Take Care Yoga are. I was right there on First and Broad, and I never left. So I've been well, that's not true. I live out of Belltown currently, but I have been in that neighborhood for 15 years. And Rob Roy, I've owned for 12 years. Sorry, worked there for 12 years, owned for 11. I don't even know. Has it been 12 years? What year is it? And then, yeah, I love that neighborhood. I love how close it is to the Pike Place Market. It's centrally located between a lot of really wonderful neighborhoods like Ballard, Capitol Hill, Queen Anne, Pioneer Square, and then so close to the ferries to hop over to Bainbridge or Vashon that it's really just always been a hub for me. And so I've always focused on opening businesses in that area. One other thing that I really love about Belltown is the arts and music culture that can seem kind of hidden, but it's there and it's really strong. And I love the vibrancy of that neighborhood, so I'll probably never leave.
Good. Glad to hear it. As your business
You're all
partner,
stuck
I'm
with
glad to
me.
hear that
Yeah.
you're not gonna leave.
I knew back in the day, how much time did you spend at the old spaghetti factory?
So funny story, one of my first roommates would eat pretty much nothing other than buttered noodles. So we went to the spaghetti factory, often.
I did too. So it's nice. It was a pillar of the community for a while.
Yeah.
One of our finer restaurants.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to joke whenever I would, and Chris knows this, whenever we would drive by that building, especially after they had closed down the spaghetti factory, I would just point at it and say, I'm going to buy that. And of course I can't buy it ever. I wouldn't ever be able to. But then when this project came about, I was, I don't know, so excited because I love that building.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great building. Anna, what about you? What's your history with the Belltown neighborhood?
Well, my husband and I are both from here, and I also love this building so much. It's iconic. It's a landmark, which is really cool that at this point it's protected in Seattle because not much is at this point. And so we were really drawn to this neighborhood because it's kind of legendary and we know it really well and we trust it as far as the development that's happening down here. There's not a lot of it, and it's really deliberate, the movement that is happening down here. We also have a lot of friends that own businesses down here, Chris Jones, and a lot of our friends have bars down here. So we spend a lot of time. My husband actually works at the Crocodile music venue right up the street, and he's been there for like years and years. So
Shout out to Joel.
Yep.
He's watching our front desk right now, checking students in, which is great. They're like, why are you here? But I mean, it's just an incredible building, and I also love like the actual buildings of here today, that space and Take Care Yoga are so beautifully built, and you don't really see that as far as new build outs in the city anymore. So we were just really drawn to it for that reason. And yeah, you're looking at the water, you can hop on the ferry. We can access different yoga communities all over the place because we're very central, and so we're easy for them to get to. Also, the parking. It's real good.
Yep.
We've had some like kind of people reach out who are more concerned about that. And would you say, my explanation has always been that the buildings that are being built in that area now have to pretty much have parking garages in them. Is that what makes the parking so good down there, or is it COVID, or is it
Well, even before COVID,
all of the above?
it's always been, I don't know why. Honestly, it makes no sense, and it always bewilders people. It must be that most of the people who live down here, they have spots underground, so they're not
Yeah.
streets.
Yeah, I've always found that just north of Vine, there is always parking, but you go south of Vine towards downtown and it's really hard to find parking. So it's a little secret that everybody knows now. If you just go north of there a couple of blocks, it's usually pretty easy to find parking.
Thanks a lot, Anu.
Sorry.
Chris, what about you? What's your history with Belltown? I think you have maybe the longest history with Belltown. Huh?
Yeah, possibly. I moved to Seattle in 2002, 2003, and I had always had this kind of like romantic notion in my head to live downtown in a city. And basically I was working in Belltown at the time and ended up like finding my place, and through some luck, through some, just circumstance, I ended up getting my place, which is in the building right next to Screwdriver, in 2004. And more or less have always worked in the neighborhood, and immediately, even before I moved here, it was always my favorite neighborhood. It was the neighborhood that felt mostly like a big city to me. There was like the diversity, the I like that there's like money, there's not money, it's just like all walks of life that live in Belltown, and it's like a hustle and bustle sort of thing. And I like the vibrancy, and I like the walkiness, and it's got like the right size for like a downtown that I really like. And it's extremely tight knit. And that was appealing for me from day one, that it was like, just from working in the neighborhood, there was a sense of belonging and looking out for each other, and that only like a neighborhood community and like a city can provide. It was always welcoming, always very supportive, even, from when I just worked part-time here, and it's only gotten stronger. And I guess to be able to contribute to that with tourists and with other businesses and with, just like the neighborly aspect is something that I've always wanted in my life. And to be able to contribute that is like my favorite thing about living down here in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, you might also win the prize for person who's lived in the same building for the longest in Seattle. That's dope. And I always forget that detail about you, that you've been in a building for so long. But it's cool. It's cool how things work out, and it's funny how things work out. And your place is known as this like kind of like bastion of just like pure, unadulterated originality. Like your bar is just 100% like an expression of your heart and your soul. And it's such a special thing for like locals to engage with that, but I think tourists like dig it, as well. You mentioned the kind of diversity aspect of the neighborhood. How would y'all say kind of like the neighborhood is changing right now? Because obviously Seattle's like grown just a ton in the last decade. And certainly like the makeup of the city is changing. The tech industry has changed it significantly. But where do you see kind of like Seattle and even Belltown sort of like as it is in this wave of change? Let's start with Chris, because we ended up there.
What was that, Chris?
Let's start with you.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Well, the awesome thing about the progression of Belltown, that in the last few years, it's certainly skewed younger business owner and also first-time business owner. I mean, and like you guys' sake, you guys own a bunch of stuff, but there's this kind of renaissance of artists, entrepreneurs, and just kind of all around good folks who are opening stuff down here. And that only enhances the community. And that kind of shields a little bit about, because we have so many big businesses downtown, and that to have these kind of artistic endeavors going on, and kind of like a new breed of business owner is what makes the neighborhood absolutely thriving in difference to other neighborhoods. There's a lot of the old guard in Seattle of people owning stuff who just continue to own stuff, and they kind of just like this shadow people in ivory towers sort of thing. And it's nice to have all these, like the next generation, and it seems to all be happening in Belltown, which is the best part about it for me.
That's awesome. What about you, Anna? How do you feel kind of like either Seattle or Belltown sort of as you see it? And y'all live in, you and Joel live in Madison Park. Okay, I was going to say Madrona, but I knew it was back there. But so you see, I mean, but even the swath of kind of like land between Madison Park and Belltown is kind of like Lake Washington to the Puget Sound straight up, but it's only a couple miles away from each other, 3 miles away from each other. How do you see kind of this area changing, and what inspired you, I guess, to do your own business sort of through that?
I mean, it's changed so much over the last decade. It's pretty insane. There was actually a point where we talked about leaving because it was really hard to watch being from the city and just watching it. So many of the buildings we grew to love and like know as home go down. But like Chris said, the idea of the Renaissance, like evolving from that, and now with Amazon and all these tech companies kind of moving back out because of the pandemic, it's kind of like this rebirth of creativity and like opportunity that I think is really neat to watch. We really were inspired to be down where we are, because you look around where we are and it's all apartments and they're full of young people, many of which are pretty stressed out, I think. So we thought it was a really nice place to put ourselves as a yoga studio, so we can offer, you know, an environment that feels like they can just release in. But I really like, I mean, Chris, you hit the nail on the head with what you were saying about how there's all walks of life down here and in Seattle in general. It is getting, I think, more and more diverse as we go on, which I love. And it's so important.
And maybe even like, as opposed to a like, or at least what we might picture a San Francisco being, where it's like, you know, the tech community is viewed as this like pretty, or it's portrayed as this like pretty negative thing there. But in Seattle, you know, like our interactions, like a lot of our dearest like regulars at our bars are like work in the tech community and are just like lovely people. Same for you, Chris. I know, like,
Yeah.
some of the people that I've met in Screwdriver Bar, just sitting there at the bar, work in the tech community, and it's like, I almost feel like it's like a different beast than it is in San Francisco or somewhere like that. But it's a little bit more integrated in like the sort of like grittier, more like raw side of the city.
Mm-hmm.
Anu, what say you? How are you seeing the city change?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, what you just said about the grit and the rawness of Belltown is something that drew me to Seattle in the first place. Like, I loved grunge and I was like, I'm moving to Seattle. But you know, when I moved here in 2005, there were the people that had lived here for 10 years that would say, you should have seen it 10 years ago. And I'd be like, well, whatever, dude, you know. But now I'm that person saying it to other people. But that's how much it has changed. The one thing that I really love about Belltown is when I moved in 2005, like they had just built some of the first new condos on First Avenue there, the Elliott and the Avenue 1 or whatever it's called. And they hadn't, like, they were the first to go up, and it was like a really big deal. And now there's condos and apartment sky rises all over the place. But there was always a deep rooted music culture and like hidden art culture. And there were always shows in basements. There were big name bands recording in studios in Belltown. Like, so much happened in Belltown and people didn't really talk about it. It was just there. So it was one of my favorite neighborhoods to walk around in and like all of a sudden find myself in an incredible space surrounded by incredible people. And at that time, a lot of those people were my age. We were like in our early 20s. And I feel like a lot of those people are now the ones owning and operating businesses in that area too. So there's these really great art studios, yoga studios, music venues, brew pub on the waterfront. Like, all of these really, really cool things are happening. And I feel like the neighborhood is shifting more towards that direction as a whole. Even some of the newer buildings that are being built for apartments have a little more of a like artistic, gritty, like industrial look to them, rather than like the glossy, shiny sort of skyscraper that was happening for a while.
Of course, we have those too, but
they're definitely.
yeah, you're right.
But I think it's a neighborhood that it just evolves and changes so quickly.
Yeah.
Got a question for the group from Ayuba. Best, weirdest, random, or most memorable Belltown night story, but maybe just story. You'd be happy to share. Anybody got one they'd like to share about Belltown?
Best, weirdest.
Chris
random.
Jones, I'm sure.
Oh man.
Yeah. I defer to the elder statesman here.
Right. Oh man, on the spot. Yeah, all right. I got a pretty good one. So this is just, it happened here in this bar, and this kind of just is just a fun Belltown thing, and it brings back to what Anu was saying about, like the grunge, and I mean, there's like Seattle will always be a landmark until the end of time because of grunge, basically. And there was we have this photograph in Belltown Yacht Club, and it's of Johnny Ramone from the Ramones and Chris Cornell, and they're having this moment, and it was a photograph taken by our friend Gilby, who I'm sure Anna knows Gilby, and it lives in Belltown Yacht Club, and we were having this show, and Kim Thale from Soundgarden came down, and I was at the bar.
No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. He just comes in and he looks at the picture of Cornell and Johnny Ramone, and he goes, "Oh man, that's like," I can see him like looking at it, and I'm behind the bar and I'm looking at him, and I was like, "Oh yeah, our friend Gilby, took that photograph," and he's like, "Steve fucking Gilbert, I love that guy." And then we just get talking about Gilby, and it was a complete like Belltown sort of Seattle moment that just happened to be with Kim Thale. And then I catch myself, I'm off doing stuff, and I catch myself, and Thale has his eyes closed, and he's just looking at this photograph with his eyes closed, and I see that he has his eyes closed, so I kind of giving him space. And then he just turns around to me, and he's like misty-eyed, and he goes, "Great fucking picture, man." And it was one of those things that's just that Seattle is just a small community. The music community is very strong. You have like legends that walk amongst us all day, which I mean is just really cool in itself. But also the history, this legendary history in the modern world is just really, really cool to be a part of that. And that kind of all of like the grunge stuff, like Anu was saying, like happened in Belltown, and that you can feel that kind of aura and history and electricity. It kind of just like flows through flows like current through the streets of Belltown and like the other neighborhoods to an extent, but it's like you feel like with the crocodile around, and I mean you feel the weight of the neighborhood, which is just the coolest thing to me. And just to have like, be able to have like musical interactions with, Kim Thale, for example, like in this bar that I built as like a shrine to almost like old Seattle and just like rock and roll in general. But to have moments like that in the 2020 that, that affect decades and generations, and, is just a cool thing. And that is like Belltown to me is like the rock and roll, but it's also just that there's superstars walking amongst, still live in Belltown, still hang out here, and all of this like mix. And it's just, yeah, it's a big deal, but it's also very comfortable. And, like people feel comfortable in Belltown. And that's just what I think is the coolest thing. And I'm reminded of it all the time. But that's like, that's a fun story to tell because everybody knows all the players involved. But that was a very special moment for me. But it was one of those things that felt like it could only happen in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
Who wants to follow that up?
How about somebody, Anna or Anu, follow up with another of Ayuba's questions? Favorite Belltown spot that you don't own and your go-to activity there? For example, specific drink, or maybe it's a spa package or a food order, etc. He gave me some options there.
All right. Let's see. Joel and I frequent the Cyclops a lot. That bar, we just love it. It's huge, and the food is weirdly very good.
It is
Can you
very
explain
good.
what the Cyclops is to anyone who doesn't live in Seattle and doesn't know like its location and kind of just what it is?
What street is that?
First and Wall.
It's First and Wall, yeah.
And it's right smack dab in the heart of Belltown. It's attached to it's the first Ace Hotel, right? That's
Yep.
that's ever built, which nobody knows.
Right.
No one knows that.
It's like the size of someone's house, like the first Ace Hotel.
Yeah.
And the Cyclops is this it just is this restaurant it's very red, it's very dark, and it just keeps going. You walk in and it keeps going, and it's crazy. And there's art all over the walls. They have this amazing eye sign outside that is lit up, and you can't miss it. And then the owners are just the quirkiest, kindest people, and they've been there for I don't know how long. You guys know?
Well before me, that's for sure. It's been around forever and always been awesome.
It's like Florida. They've been there for like 40 years.
Yeah.
Always there. They are literally. It doesn't matter what time it is that you walk in, and they're there, and they're like talking and like just working and fiddling behind the bar. And it's just so neat. It's just like, and we go in there, and they'll like give us, pear juice that they made from the pears in their yard, and just talk to us about like shirts that for our wedding. I remember the guy who owns it, he loaned all of his old shirts that were like Mexican shirts to the guys at our wedding, and they all wore his shirts.
What?
He talks about it every time we go in there, and he tells us the story about it. And we're like, I just adore that place, and I could sit there forever.
That's so great. Anu, what about you? You're muted.
You're muted.
I muted myself instead of unmuting myself. I've done this before. There's so many little spots that you can like duck into in Belltown that I love. I love popping into Sassafras and checking out the local designers that are not only displaying and selling their clothes on that top floor, but they're all working below. So you can have custom things made. And then one of my actually, Chris and I did this a lot when we were opening up Navy Strength and No Anchor when we were really stressed out. I guess not a lot, but my favorite thing is just to walk down the hill to the Edgewater Hotel. And Anna, we went there with Joel to talk business one time, which was awesome. Just because that hotel is on on a pier in the water, and in the summer you can sit outside and you feel like you're essentially dangling your legs over, the pier.
You can dang your legs if you want to.
And dang my legs and drink my giant martini right off of that pier.
For anybody that's listening that they've ever seen the very famous photo of like the Beatles like fishing outside the window of the hotel, that's the Edgewater Hotel in Seattle. So you can back in the day you used to be able to rent fishing poles and fish out the windows, and the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and everybody was their go-to hotel. We
could do that at the brewery, but we would need very long fishing line.
You could fly fish from the brewery.
Right.
Yeah, which is incredible. So the Edgewater is a block away from where Here Today is.
Straight up the street.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the neighborhood definitely has some color to it. It's kind of a unique neighborhood, right? Because it's also in flux with the changes that are happening to the waterfront. I mean, no neighborhood in Seattle is more affected by the kind of physical change that's going on right now than Belltown, because they had this, or maybe you could argue downtown, I guess, but that downtown doesn't, I don't want to overspeak, but like downtown doesn't have quite the like cultural, independently owned things that Belltown has, certainly.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's very much the financial district. Like in big cities, that's what the downtown core of Seattle feels like.
Right. There's a Four Seasons there. There's a Ruth's Chris. Nothing wrong with any of those things, but it's not like locals aren't like running to downtown to go eating and drinking. But right. So there, for anyone that doesn't live in Seattle, there was this viaduct, this highway that went up the waterfront, and then they tore it down. They dug this tunnel. Actually, I think they dug the tunnel and then they tore it down. But now all of a sudden there's like this connection between the waterfront and Belltown that used to be a little bit more separated, right? Because that viaduct came kind of right up where Western is.
It went up, it went under Battery. So the Battery Street Tunnel was there. That actually was one thing that I really loved about Belltown, was that it was kind of the end of the viaduct because it went under Belltown.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't really affected by the noise of the viaduct. And also kind of like you would have to exit to get to Belltown.
It was hard to call an Uber there though, because sometimes the Uber would come underneath where you were.
At
Yep.
Rob Roy. Yeah. They would like drive into the tunnel and be like, but it says you're here. And you're
Where
like,
are
yeah,
you?
up. I'm above you. Yeah, but I do think that the viaduct coming down is playing a really important role in the development of the waterfront as a whole. So the parkways that are going to be built is going to bring so much more foot traffic down there, because when the viaduct was there, it wasn't the best place to walk around. I mean, there were a lot of tent cities, and there was a lot, it was very dark. And the best thing about having the viaduct there was that they would bring the goats to trim the grass every now and then. And it's always fun to watch. But it was industrial. It was very, very industrial. And that's, I kind of honestly miss parts of the viaduct because it embraced a lot of what Seattle was to me too, this industrial blue collar city. And so with that being torn down, there was a little sadness, a little fondness of what was that's now gone. But that being said, the revitalization of the waterfront, those parks, the walkways, the new bike, Chrissy, you can probably talk more about that, but the bike lane situation that's going all the way from Magnolia, Ballard through to downtown is a game changer. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and there's one that goes from South Lake Union to that area too, that they haven't finished connecting it, but they're about to, which is great. At least getting there is great because the hill is steep, right? So I guess my next question, Anna, you said something in your kind of first answer that struck me, which you said that the building, this old spaghetti factory building, which is adjacent to where your yoga studio is and where Here Today brewery and kitchen is going to be, is protected. And obviously there's a lot of change going on in Seattle in general and Belltown, and a lot of it involves people raising buildings so that they can build something new. And it seems like there's also some developers that are interested in kind of keeping the old around, at least the shell, at least the vibe or something. What are some things that y'all are inspired by as far as just like things that are preserving the culture in some way in a city that's changing really quickly? I'm sure we all see and hear from people who love Seattle or who love the old Seattle but aren't enthused about where it's going necessarily. I mean, we see hashtags, vanishing Seattle, similar to vanishing New York, that you see in New York City. And, salient posts typically, right? It's somebody saying, hey, I loved this building and it's getting torn down or turned into condos or whatever. But obviously, in some ways, that's like, you would say that's the cost of progress. What are some things that you were excited about that are kind of like almost transitionary things or things that are not kind of like vanishing about this city or about Belltown in particular, be it a repurposed building or whatever?
I mean, specifically this building that I'm sitting in, the old spaghetti factory building. It's funny, I always call it that, but it used to be a salmon cannery, which is so interesting. And you can really tell when you go into the garage, it's so haunted. The beams, the ceiling's
yes,
so low, and the beams are really old. And I think it's actually kind of funny because, I mean, where we are, we're in the parking lot here today. We're in the parking lot as a building, but the old spaghetti factory has a brick facade, and you go in and there's these huge wooden beams, and the business is in there, did a beautiful job with the build out, and it's very posh and it's very new, yet it has these old beams, old things about it. And I think it's kind of funny because in that building, people will be working and like a spider will fall out of this 100-year-old beam and they'll be like, oh my God. And it's like, yeah, you're in a really old building and that spider's probably been there longer than you. But I mean, I just really am attached to this space in general because I've watched so many places go under and go down and get ripped down. Many of our theaters have been taken down, and I mean the music venues that I love, like we Seattleites will fight for those buildings, you know, and that's the other thing that's really cool is if you are from here, if you care about the city, you will fight for, there's not a single building that has gone down without a serious fight attached to it. So I was stoked when this building became repurposed and protected and they built something really beautiful kind of within it. But the Belltown piece right now that I'm really mourning is the Elephant Car Wash going away.
Rest in power.
I know. So that's my latest kind of heartbreak, but you know, it's okay. That is true what you said, where there comes development, there comes progress, and it's constantly evolving. So
Yeah. And if the neighborhoods, you know, like kind of akin to what Chris was saying, if the neighborhoods are able to continue a vibrant kind of like independent business culture of some kind, you can create new memories, you can create new things for people to ultimately, what we're talking about is new things for people to miss someday when they're gone, because none of us, no one creates a 100-year bar, right? There's no 50-year yoga studio around anyways.
Yeah. I mean, they're like these changes are happening, things are going away, the progress is being made. And that if you're focusing on that aspect of things, which is happening, you have to at least acknowledge that there's still some people around doing some cool stuff, you know, like everybody here, and new ownerships. And so if you're acknowledging that everything's going away, you have to acknowledge that there's cool stuff being built with soul and with good intentions and all that. So it's like, yes, things are going away, but you know, not all hope is lost, because there's some really great stuff happening.
Yeah, I think it's important to note too that we have the developers of our building where Anna Take Care Yoga is at, and we're here today, will be like Joel, the kind of leader of that group. He's had like a long love affair with the old spaghetti factory building. Like he sent the owners of that building every year for 15 or 20
for some
years.
Yeah
He's sent a letter
trying to buy it.
Yeah, trying to buy the place, and when they wanted to sell it, they reached out to him because they knew that it would be like cared for. And preserved, not just torn down and turned into a whole new thing. So I think it's cool that, especially for us, we have like kind of that advocate on our side for that history piece, along with, you know, trying to build a small business community in our neighborhood. Yeah, it's really cool. And as an outsider, you know, coming in and seeing that, like, it was genuine, you know, you could see it in Joel's face when he was telling that story, that how like much he really gave a shit about this place, you know, which is cool.
Anu, is there something that did you already, I don't think you answered this one yet. What is kind of like the Belltown or like old Seattle element that is sticking around in some way that you're, or maybe is transitioning or repurposing or something like that you are super pumped about? I know the spaghetti factory building meant a lot to you too. We talked about it so many, like literally probably 20 times.
Yeah. Well, the people. I continue, after 15 years of living or being in Belltown, continue to see the same people walking down the streets. A lot of new people too, a lot of new people. But there are residents that have lived in Belltown for decades. And I really love that. And the fact that they're from all income levels and all housing types. There's a lot of everything from multi-million-dollar condos to low-income housing in that neighborhood mixed together, which is very important for me, is something that I really love and cherish about Belltown. And I don't see that changing, you know.
Yeah. Switching to more of like the entrepreneurial side of things, I would love to hear from each of you kind of like how or like what pushed you to create your own thing, because it's obviously like it's more than, or maybe it's not, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but it's more than kind of like a desire to not have a boss that would make someone climb the insane mountain of opening a business. But I'd love to hear from each of you kind of like what kind of like got you to make the initial decision, and then, you know, how is it different than sort of what you thought it would be? Anna, obviously, like you've been running your business for a while. You just like open the doors to your brick and mortar, right?
Yeah. Pretty different right now than I ever thought. But yeah, opening in a pandemic is something. But we're here and we're trying. We did it. We started this process because it was something that I always wanted to do, was create a yoga studio. Taught in Seattle for over a decade, and I taught in like every neighborhood at most of the studios, and just like learned as much as I can. I've been the director of a lot of them. I've managed a lot of them. And I was just gathering information. And Joel, my husband, he was a musician and always on the road. And when we met, he started doing yoga, and it was like this very healthy thing that he started doing. And it really kind of kept him grounded and put him on a healthier schedule and routine. And I think he wanted to start a bar, but then I remember one day he was like, let's just do a studio. Like, I don't think he wanted to work the hours of a bar anymore. Both of us were bartenders too for years, but that's how we met. Was working at Numos, but it was really like, we're either gonna, like, this was the only thing we were gonna do. Like, there's no other option. And once we realized that, we were just all in. I never
Gotta be.
have to move or open now, but no one did. I mean, everyone was. So.
And did you guys specifically target Belltown, or did the space dictate where it was, or did the neighborhood dictate maybe like the vision a little bit, or how or were you guys like looking at, did you have a space in mind like that would be ideal? Or I'm just, kind of curious about the behind the scenes.
This question's coming from someone who lived in the building his bar is in for 16 years.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. We wanted to be in Belltown. We purposely sought out Belltown. We looked at a few other places, and I was looking for 2 years. Actually was at an office job, perusing most of the time, looking for a space. But we didn't actually view that many spaces before we saw this one. And we actually looked at another space within this building originally, and then they took us over to where Take Care is now. And they're like, there's also this one. And we walked in, we're like, yes, this is the one. It's way bigger than we ever imagined we would go. We really went for it. And, I don't regret doing that by any means. It's wild that we have all this space now. And I'm like, hey, you 8 people, come in here. I'm going to spread out like 13 feet apart, but at least we have that space. And the community down here has surprised me more than anything else, though. People are really coming out in droves to like support us and to support small business and to practice and like be with each other and meet each other. And it kind of took on a life of its own that Joel and I just kind of went with. And now we're here, and our 8-person classes, they're doing good. So that's good. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Question. I think did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anu, what about you? Why did you become an entrepreneur, and how's it going?
I became an entrepreneur, honestly, because I dropped out of medical school and I had to do something to make my parents proud. That's the only part of it. No, I don't know. I feel like it just pulls. I just feel like what we do, the bar and hospitality world just pulls people in, and the people that are willing to be pulled in, just like a gravitational force. And I feel like I was just one of those people, and happened to be in the right place at the right time to buy a bar. And it happened to be in Belltown, which was like also pulling me magnetically. So that worked out really well. And I was gonna say I don't like bosses, but I am a boss. So how can I say that? I've always worked well under people, but I really enjoy, Chris, I feel like you're the same way. I just love throwing out ideas and having a team of people that can like help me implement these ideas and make them come to life. Because oftentimes there will be days where I just have like so many ideas and I'll just like spit them out. And if there are people around me that can catch them and then help me put them together, that's just how I work and that's how my brain works. And I feel like I'm just suited to be an entrepreneur in that way.
Almost as opposed to like executing someone else's ideas, you're saying like you have your kind of creative vision. Yeah, you do. I think that it's not like subversive or anything, but you've never been like the loudest person in like the beverage community. You're more of like a constant gentle pressure. Like, I know what I am. I know what my bar is. That's what it's going to be. If you like it, you're welcome here. If you don't like it, cool. That's fine.
Yeah. I think I take a pretty laid back stance on a lot of things too. Although when I'm working for somebody else, it's the opposite. Like I'll go all in and almost destroy myself doing it. So maybe that is also why I'm better suited to be like, the person's like, let's see if this works.
Here's kind of like a follow-up question, but I know we're running out of time and people have things to do, but can y'all talk about kind of like what you see sort of, obviously we're hopefully most of the way, or at least like a significant way through the pandemic. We've made I think we made some strides in some decision-making processes in America this week. I think some of that obviously remains to be seen, but what are you excited about, like kind of for your business? What are you hopeful for, I guess, for your business? And obviously all of your businesses exist, so you're doing better than a significant portion of independent or otherwise businesses out there during this pandemic. But sort of like, what do you see on the horizon? What are you hopeful for? What are you excited about? Anyone? I don't know.
Well, Chris, I certainly appreciate your optimism about the pandemic. That's for sure. To be honest, it's very difficult to even consider the future with what's going on right now. And I'm just focusing every day on how to keep people safe and how to give people a good time in the bar in as limited a capacity as that. And it's literally just like kind of a day by day situation, just trying to stay in the moment of how we can keep people safe and, keep the doors open basically, but just to stay the vision of having people have a good time. And then we'll figure things out when the new day comes basically, but just,
you're treading water almost.
Yeah.
But you're doing it in your way.
We are absolutely doing it in our way, but it's like, it's almost just like we can't worry about we can only worry about what's happening right now and how to give people what we need to give people. And that's just what we're focusing on. I mean, I am optimistic for the future and we'll get through it, but it's all about like today and tomorrow and what's right in front of me in terms of like hospitality and customer service and all that sort of stuff.
How many changes have you made in Screwdriver? Not like a number, but like name some things that y'all have done to be able to continue to exist at your bar.
We started doing, when the pandemic first hit, we did the to-go cocktails, and we built like this lemonade stand for to-go cocktails. And and then we were able to have a street patio, but to get that, we had to build a kitchen. We've never had food before in Screwdriver, and we have a couple chef ringers on staff. So we pivoted to we built a kitchen so we could have the patio. And then through that, kind of miraculous discovery, we decided we really enjoy having food. So we're going to continue doing that. And then now we've finally came to the place where we feel safe letting people downstairs. So we just have like very limited capacity, and that is just, you know, consistent business has been the name of the game, I guess. But it's been, we just kind of had this confidence that however the laws change, however the world changes, we can just roll with it on a dime, basically, still continuing with how to do things how we want to do them, which is like simple and at a high level. So no matter what we do, it still feels like Screwdriver because we're still giving it the same sort of attention. With all that being said, nothing is better than having people in your space. And I mean, like, you know, like Anna, how long have you guys been working on to getting to this point? And you just cannot beat having real live people in a safe face-to-face environment. I mean, that's still to this day such an amazing feeling, and that kind of is what is getting us through. So it's just been like a number of pivots just to get to this point where we feel really good about having a small number of people down.
Hell yeah. Well, you're doing it right, and you're obviously staying true to your, you know, who you are, who y'all are, and what Screwdriver is. And I think that like Belltown would feel like a totally different place if Screwdriver wasn't like doing something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Anna, what about you? I mean, obviously you came from your business is not just new. I mean, Screwdriver is still a new business. It's 4 years old soon, right? Like now,
Yeah.
4 years old. December
9th.
Hey, we'll get them a card. Dave, write that down. Got to get them a card. But Anna, you're you know, like y'all were already you had already started the process when COVID started, right?
Yeah, we were supposed to open on 4/20, April 20th, and that did not happen. Everything fell apart, you know, with that. Joel ended up actually building it himself, and thank God our friends are handy. But yeah, it was weird. Like our opening party, there were like 5 people there. You know, it's the most anticlimactic thing. I was so thankful for those 5 people, but I was like,
here it is.
It's just so weird. And but you know, it's been interesting because the people that we do see every day are so thankful to be there. And right now it's like everyone is experiencing trauma. Like it doesn't matter who you are. And so when they show up, they're just so thankful to be around other people in a safe way and be in that space and do something that makes them feel better. And I'm sure it's same with Screwdriver. Like that place is a lot of people's ritual is going there and, you know, with their significant other or whatever, and going and seeing their favorite bartender. And like that, I know all my friends, their favorite bar is Screwdriver. So, I mean,
well,
I know you guys were open downstairs. I'm definitely going to come in now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been one of the most fulfilling and heartbreaking experiences of my life. But we're here every day, and
yeah,
that's all we can do.
Yeah.
Well, I must just say that in terms of from an outside perspective, watching the build out, the care, the community based, I mean, there should be like a class written about how to open a business, period. And you guys should be like a model for that. It's been incredible to watch. And it's inspiring. You guys like have done everything right. And in the middle of a pandemic, you guys it's class, and it's, you guys are such a welcome addition to the neighborhood, but it's just been very impressive how you guys have done this build out. And it's like, it inspires us all the time. So thanks for, you know, keeping your vision and executing it flawlessly. It's really, really cool to see.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's an awesome, comfy space.
Yeah, Dave's been taking class there regularly.
It's nice. I like that there's plenty of room to spread out because I got a lot of legs, and sometimes
we got 9 feet on
so many goddamn legs.
Maybe sensei.
Anu, what about for you?
I kind of forgot what the question was, and I also got really inspired by Chris and Anna on a lot of things. So my brain is just like reeling right now.
Sort of, the question was essentially about pivots and kind of like, you know, what you've had to do and where, you know, where the challenges have been. Yeah.
Yeah, because I own and co-own different concepts, every business has had to take on a different pivot. And I'm really trying not to use the word pivot anymore because I've heard pivot so many times.
Yeah.
It's
don't
the
want to
word
hear it
though.
anymore.
It is,
Do not name a bar
pivot,
Mario. No naming a
pivot
bar pivot. A beer. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have to say that the biggest thing for me was transitioning from doing what I was really loving, you know, being a business owner, into more of a political liaison, which the pandemic should not be political at all. But I turned into the person that was the moderator, the liaison between landlords, insurance companies, legislation, and restaurant groups that are fighting really hard for us to survive. I recently actually talked to our director of hospitality for our restaurant group to have her help me take on more. So we do these holiday pop-ups, and she's running them this year so that I can focus on legislation and trying to help the restaurant industry survive through this. That being said, I'm super optimistic. I think that landlords are starting to understand that they need restaurants and they need tenants in their building, and so they're retaining them. And I think it's going to be a while before we can go back to what once was. But I also think that no, we're not going to name a drink pivot, Ayuba. But I also think that it was time to no pivot pills, Mario. It was definitely time to restructure the restaurant and the hospitality industry big time in so many ways. And that's actually something that I really love about here today, is how you all have talked about handling your front of house and the service style there, because I think it is how service is moving. And I think it's a really smart move to keep labor down, but service and hospitality high. So we're kind of trying out that business model at some of our spots right now. Another thing that we've done is sort of mashed together things. Like I had a bar tool shop in the Pike Place Market, which closed down. I was about to sign a new lease in February, and I'm really glad I did not do that. But now we've moved all of those things into Vinnie's, our wine shop. So it's really cool to have a bottle shop and like bar tools just kind of in the same space. So things are constantly changing, and I know they'll continue to change into the next year and probably into 2020. But like I said, I'm very optimistic on what's happening with the bar and restaurant world and brew pubs in particular.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, you know, obviously none of us can say where things are going to go, but I think it's very obvious that you kind of, you know, you become a lot of you surround yourself with people that you admire, and you can kind of in some ways become them. I've always loved that quote, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And certainly, like being a small business owner in Belltown right now, I feel like I'm in the right room. And, you know, I hope that that continues. And I hope that despite all that's going on, that we can continue to kind of like push forward these kind of like independent values, you know, the kind of like plucky, like entrepreneurial ethos of, you know, like, hey, I dreamed up this thing and it doesn't exist. I'll create it. I just think that's so special. And that's one thing that like makes our neighborhood and our city really cool. And obviously y'all are three people who, you know, we really, really, really admire, and we're just so grateful to be in this community with. So thank you so much for being that. And obviously you have our undying support and love for all that you are and all that you like give to our community. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
I mean, definitely, certainly a unifying theme throughout this whole thing was heart. And I mean, Belltown definitely has heart, and all the people in this room chat have heart. And I mean, it's things like that that give me hope for going forward, is because people who own businesses like they kind of like treat it like their home. And that's what we need more of. And I mean, that's like the underlying theme throughout Belltown is like, it's just got a lot of heart, and it's like a family sort of atmosphere, and people run their businesses like that. And that is important to people. And I mean, that's why it's the neighborhood. That's why these businesses need to be in Belltown. And
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Oh, we lost your audio.
We lost your audio a little bit there, Chris.
Dang, we lost Chris's audio. It was right when he was dropping a dank nug of wisdom too.
I know.
We'll just talk when you come back. Dave, do you have any remarks? Prepared remarks?
No, I didn't get my speechwriters on anything for tonight.
Well, maybe we can just touch on the fact that this has been a really like emotionally tense week. If anyone needs a delicious drink or perhaps to practice some yoga, we know where you can go. But other than that, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and the only way we're going to get through this is by leaning on each other and caring about each other. So keep that part up.
Yeah.
And we'll see you in the pit at the next Soundgarden show.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us today, y'all. And
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll be sharing a drink together, or a good stretch together, or both soon.
Let's get a group class with Anna.
Please.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm always there.
Awesome.
Perfect.
All right,
See you in 5.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Thanks for being here. Means so
All right.
much.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.